PHA's Brandon Shea and the PJ's John Holmes also on the show today. It's a great pleasure to welcome my first guest. 282 winners in Hong Kong and £37.1 million in prize money, but he is back. He was dubbed the Iron Man by the Chinese press. That is the sort of reception he used to receive when he rode a winner from the huge and enthusiastic Hong Kong racing and betting public. He is, of course, Neil Callan. Neil, great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah. It's nice to be on the show.
And we've missed you, but I don't know how much you've missed us. How much have you missed British racing?
And I've always kept in touch with it. I had live feed out in Hong Kong, so I could watch live racing when the timing was right. But and obviously I watched your show from afar, and you've seen what a good job you were doing. So it's a privilege actually to be on here. So it's nice to be home.
Well, it's great to have you with us. Why did you come back?
I suppose it was a mixture of a lot of things. My kids were getting a bit older. I've got 4 boys, and my eldest son Jack is 14, and I got Henry who's 12, and I suppose they're kind of getting to that teenage stage where my eldest son Jack wants to be a jockey. He's dead set on it, and it's something.
What do you think about that?
It's something I'll support. Absolutely. Why wouldn't I? Like, look at the career it's given me, and the life it's given me, and the life it's given my family. So, you know. One thing I will always do in life is that I will support my kids, whatever they do, as long as they're not bums. But, yeah, I think that's most important. You've got to support your kids in whatever they're going to do. And if Jack wants to be a jockey, then I'll fully support him.
So that was the big driving force. You felt that the rest of their upbringing should be here in Europe rather than in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I think in Hong Kong, like, the lifestyle is... it's very good. It's a little bit, no, I wouldn't say false, but it's not real life, you know. It's nearly too good, you know. You kind of grow up a little bit spoiled. And I just thought now at this stage with the old boys getting a bit older and the younger ones following them up, I think it was time to come home. So the timing was right.
When you left to ride in Hong Kong, and I know you had a bit of time where you were doing the two, you were riding here and riding in Hong Kong in the winter, but when it came to the decision to up sticks and take the whole family out and to live there, what did your wife Trish say to you?
Obviously she's a bit apprehensive because, you know, her family was in Newmarket where our home was, and, you know, she was very close to her grandfather because he used to take her show jumping as a kid. And she was still doing a lot of shows just before we left. So I suppose she was a little bit uptight about that, you know, because it's a big move if you're going to go the other side of the world, and kind of have it in the back of your mind that if you do well over 1 season, 2 seasons, that it's going to be like 3 seasons, 4 seasons, 5 seasons. But, you know, it was down to me to convince them, and I did. So then, obviously, I had to perform to take them all the way over there to prove to them it was a good idea. So
I said it's been described as the toughest jockeys group, the toughest jockeys colony, as they used to call it in the world. Is that a fair assessment of Hong Kong, do you think?
Yeah, like, I mean, when I rode in England before that, obviously you have to perform on a daily basis. You race 7 days a week. But, you know, I used to ride. I rode a lot of years for Kevin Ryan, so, like, you know, we're very good relationship. Always had good horses every season, you know. So you give the odd one a bad ride, and you move on to the next day, and it's quickly forgotten about. Whereas in Hong Kong, you race twice a week, and it's very scrutinised by the local press, the international press, and there's so much information out there that, you know, the scope is on you, and a new jockey coming in, you've got to quickly perform, because you can drop out very, very quickly, and, you know, it's like swimming against the tide. You know, if you kind of drop back, it's harder to make that extra yard. So you kind of have to be very, very kind of aggressive, very on the ball, very focused. There's so much you have to be on.
When you arrive there, do you get any help?
When I went there first, it's like, it's a bit different because it's completely different to what we're used to in the UK. UK, you have an agent who books all your rides. they kind of help you with your form, and you work with your trainer. And when you go there, it's kind of like, okay, here's your license, there's the trainer stand, and you're on your own.
Quite terrifying.
Well, it is, but at the start, I suppose it is, and then you kind of have to realise that, well, nobody's going to help me here, so I've got to help myself. So I've got to get in, do my own PR. I have to interact with the trainers. Then I have to obviously meet some owners, get in with them, get to know them, and then once you start kind of getting rolling and getting a few winners, then you don't rest on your laurels. You have to kind of push out and meet new people and new owners, and then those owners introduce you to other owners. And you just kind of build up a rapport between everybody, and yeah, that's literally what you got to do.
It seems to me, just looking from the outside, that you have to have this combination of being quite alpha, quite aggressive, but at the same time being an arch diplomat. It's quite a difficult balance to strike, isn't it?
You certainly have to be diplomatic, because there's only 24 trainers and 24 jockeys. So, if you're to fall out with a few trainers along the way, it narrows your gap to chase the rides that you want to get on. So, yes, you have to be diplomatic. You have to learn how to conduct yourself. But also, you have to be a little bit aggressive, like you say, because you have to be able to push yourself into these people to convince them that you're good enough to be there and good enough to win on their horses.
The Chinese press dubbed you Iron Man. Where did that come from?
It's quite funny. Well, not funny, but I rode in a race one day, and unfortunately my horse got brought down. He clipped heels, and I kind of rolled out through the rails, and then on the inside of the track there's a drain which runs along by the road. I nearly fell into that, and anyway, I literally felt like I was okay, got up. Most important thing was to run to help the horse. I could see he was in quite some difficulty, so I held on to him until the vets got there. Once the vets had him, then I got the tack off, and then literally looked around for the nearest car, jumped in the car, like, I'm in the next race, I need to go. Rushed back, ran across the track, ran into the weigh room, getting some applause from trainers and that, but I didn't really think anything of it. I just rushed in, got ready for the next race, come back out, and I think I won the next race. And it's funny, when I came back in, there was like applause and cheers and everything, and like I just felt like I was doing my job, and I'm a competitive sportsman. So, but anyway, the next day, the Chinese press put up all over the papers that I was going to be dubbed the Ironman. So I thought it was a good fit, and it was a good name to have. So I stuck with it.
There's worse nicknames to have. And did it give you that little bit of identity that you need? Because is being Neil Callan just not quite enough?
Yeah, obviously, you have to be yourself, but when you're out there and it's they're so passionate about the sport, like it's the #1 sport in Hong Kong, horse racing, that once you get labelled with a big name or dubbed with a name like that, it's good, it helps.
When Moreira came along, and everyone knows what he's done for Hong Kong racing, and they called him the Magic Man, how did that make you feel? You'd been there as part of the jockeys firmament, big competitor, and he gets this kind of stardust status. How did it resonate amongst all the other riders?
Look, throughout the years, even from when I first started going there, before Joe even got there, you had the likes of Darren Bean, Brett Preble, you had Jeffrey Lloyd, you had a lot of top jockeys there. Christophe Soumillon has been out there for a long time, and then Joe came from Singapore, and he was like, he went from Brazil to Singapore, and he was champion jockey, and I knew they were trying to get him there beforehand anyway, and eventually he came, and he obviously came with this big aura that he was going to just take over. And he kind of did, he just makes certain horses run that obviously hadn't before, and he gets the status of Magic Man Joe. And you don't really kind of feel put out by it, because there's so many jockeys filtered through Hong Kong, and some do well and some top jockeys don't. So it's determined by who you are, your personality, how you approach things, and how you conduct yourself, and obviously how you get horses to run. And Joe did that very well. So it didn't put me out because once you're there, you look after yourself, really, you know. And Joe's a good guy, and he's been doing great things in Hong Kong. So, you know, it's like the Ryan Moore in England. You know, he's top jockey here and has been for a long time. You've got to respect these people as well.
Even somebody as successful and illustrious as Joe Moreira has gone on record as saying that the mental stress that he was put under by riding there has been significant, and there wasn't much in the way of support for that. Is that something you could identify with?
Yeah, it's something that had been brought up in the past there. You know, it's very difficult to ride there because it's quite intense and it's very professional. And like I said, the scope is always on you, so you have to perform, or you get forgot about very quickly. So, but even more so in the last 12 to 18 months when COVID and the pandemic hit, like it literally stopped racing around the world. But Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Jockey Club did an amazing job to keep racing going. But it was under tight restriction. You know, we were literally not screwed down, but we were like, couldn't go out, mix, go play golf, which is one of the best main pastimes that we used to do. Mixing with certain owners, mixing with certain people. So we understood that we had to be proactive and we had to help racing carry on. Yeah. So we were more than willing to be careful and kind of safeguard racing in Hong Kong to keep it going. But I suppose as time wore on, it got a little bit more tight and a little bit more, not mentally stressful. Like, I'm quite a tough person, so I was able to handle pretty much anything that was thrown at me throughout my career anyway. But with what Joe was saying, that over a period of time and being restricted, and it just kind of wears away at you. And I remember that my kids were going to school there. I had 3 kids in school, and I was getting a little bit worried, and my wife actually Trish was getting a little bit, not upset about it, but she was just worrying about what if the kids get it from school, and what if they bring it back in, and because we're all in a kind of a close
and then it shuts the whole
community.
The whole thing down.
Yeah, and if one brings it in, like the whole thing shuts down. So we didn't want to be the ones that caused it. So that's what I'm saying. That was the most thing that we worried about, was like our kids. So I then took my kids out of school and made them do homeschooling on Zoom, even though the school was carrying on. And then I had like 4 kids in an apartment doing live Zoom school, all in the same vicinity, doing different classes. So you can imagine how uptight and a bit stressful that was.
I think there's so much empathy from people watching for your situation there. It's one of these sort of universal problems of people homeschooling and trying to work and trying to do their jobs and not impact upon everybody else at the same time.
Yeah, and then I had to book my own rides, so I had to do all my own homework. So like look through races, chase trainers and chase rides, and I had to do all that at the same time. So, you know, that kind of, as strong and as strong a person as I have been and always have been, it just got a little bit on top of me towards the end. And, you know, I suppose one thing led to another, and, you know.
It's the elephant in the room, and I know you don't want to talk about it too much, but we have to address it. You got a big suspension towards the end of your time in Hong Kong, and you got it half reduced on appeal for an altercation in the steward's room. Is it something in time you think you're going to feel comfortable talking about? Is it something you want to say more about?
Yeah, of course I'm going to talk about it at some stage, you know, because there was a lot said about it at the time, and there's been a lot said about it after, and there's a lot of people asking me. But, you know, I've kept it quite low-key and kept it closed doors, because I think at the moment I've left the door open for the Hong Kong Jockey Club to invite me back, even if it's for a winter stint. So, you know, it's something that I would be interested in doing. So, you know, I don't want to cut my nose off to spite my face. And, you know, look, if I can go back at some stage in the winter time, I'd love to go back. And I've had great success there, so I don't see why I couldn't.
You talk about your toughness, your mental resilience. You've survived a decade in Hong Kong, which is an awful lot more than most people do. You talk about the fact that you quite enjoy the challenge. Where does all that come from? What instilled that into you as a boy or a young man?
Well, I've always wanted to be a jockey since I was a kid. I used to record racing on the TV when I went to school, come home and be able to watch it. And that was like the kind of Patrick, Willie Carson, all that era. So it was quite exciting, and it was something I always wanted to do. And, I suppose when you're growing up and you get a chance, so I started out with Kevin Prendergast. Did 2.5 years with him, and it was like quite tough. I wasn't the most professional at that time as a kid because, you're kind of a little bit wet behind the ears and you're not, you're still learning. And that kind of looked like it was slipping away and I was going to have to do something else. And I just got a chance to be able to go to the UK, and I teamed up with Carl Brock as a kid. And I suppose it was determination that I got a second chance to be able to be a jockey, something I always wanted to do. And I did, and I think, like going back to what you're saying, I think it was more determination that, this is what I wanted to be. And I always had that kind of toughness in me. I was always quite a tough character. So I suppose with that and the determination to succeed, I always just used to push myself.
But do you think that mentality is genetic, something you were born with? Were you inspired by people growing up, either parents or friends or relatives?
I was always very close to my grandmother, and she used to love racing. Actually, my grandfather at the time, he used to do a lot of at the races, the Curragh racecourse. He used to do the in those days it was like the boards where you put the betting price up opposite the track. So I used to put the boards up for him, and he'd get all the information from across the track on the walkie-talkie, and I would put the betting the prices on the board up. And my uncle used to do all the jockeys list, which is all done by hand. He put them in by board, and some were chalk and some were print. And he used to wind me up and tell me, until you're a jockey and you're good enough, you're a chalk jockey. So I suppose things like that, growing up kind of spurred me into wanting to succeed and do well. Obviously back then I never thought that I'd be where I am now or as good as I had done in my career. But I suppose little things like that kind of spur you on. And when I went to England and I've been a print jockey, I always used to let them know.
Not a chalk jockey anymore.
Not a chalk jockey anymore. So.
But you started off by saying it was your grandmother. Tell me a bit more about her, because she was obviously a big influence on you.
Yeah, I was very close to my grandmother.
So is this your father's mother?
My mother's mother.
Not your mother's mother?
I used to go and see her after school every day. Used to run down the town, put her bets on for her, get her fish and chips, and put her bets on. And the lady in the bookmakers, she'd only have small money, like £2, 2.50, 50p, cross trebles and all these things. I would just hand the tickets in, and the lady knew who I was, so she would take the bets. And then I'd go home and sit with my grandmother and just be all teletext at the time. So we used to just check all the results. And it was really fun, because I used to love when she'd have a winner and she'd be cheering, and just things like that growing up. So she was a big influence on me, that when I was a jockey, that I always used to send her text, or she would send me a voice message when I had a winner. And I'd just get Granny here, and well done, or, good luck for tomorrow. And so yeah, that all that sort of thing at the start kind of built me up then, that when I did go to England and I was starting to get better and more successful, that I was kind of doing it for her. So that's kind of what spurred me on.
And has that informed the way that you've approached how to sort of marshal your own children's career? You were talking about how your son wants to be a jockey. Has that idea of constancy, someone always just being there as a quiet, reassuring presence, is that the way you would like to do things?
Yeah, because, obviously I'm going to have a lot of advice to give him, but he has to find his own way too, so he's been, Jack's been riding out for Dave Simcock at the moment, so David and Jenny's been really good with him, letting him come in and go up to the gallops and have a look at the gallops, and there could be a bit of competition for Jack, I think, because Kevin Ryan, my old boss, is god dad, so We'll have to. I don't know how we're going to handle that, but look, he's enjoying it at the moment. Like, he gets up himself in the morning, he gets on his bike, and he goes straight to Dave Simcox, and he goes and rides out, and he doesn't need anybody to help him to get up or drive in there. So, you know, it's something that he's wanting to do. And this is what I say to you: like, I don't want to push him, and I don't want to tell him. I don't want to tell him how to do things. He has to kind of find his own way, and then along the way, you know, I'll be giving him pointers, obviously, I'm sure, but I'm sure he'll be telling me to go away and all that. But I think I'd like to just help guide rather than tell him to do things certain way or my way. Because when I grew up, I kind of found my way and I pushed myself, and for my own reasons. So I think he kind of has to do the same thing.
But you had that framework of love and support in the background there.
Absolutely, and I think...
And that gave you the confidence.
Of course, and when you look at, like, most jockeys, kids, even nowadays, when they come up and they have the breakthrough and then they have the big interview, there's always something like that in the background, that they talk about a family influence or some sort of, like, personal influence that helps spur them on to be where they are. So I think everybody needs that. Every young jockey or young sportsman needs that sort of inspiration to push themselves and to perform at their best.
And then, of course, you've got to have a bit of luck and the right sequence of people in your life, people who you ride for, people who you work for, people who you work with, agents, trainers, and so forth. Who have been the most significant influences, do you think, for you professionally?
I think when I kind of broke through and you know, like, I was leading apprentice one year and then I kind of went missing for a couple of seasons. You know, it's like the drop-off. And
so you remember that, nobody else does.
Well, you obviously remember whatever you do throughout your career. But I did. I had a couple of quiet seasons, and my agent at the time said to me that Kevin Ryan had been watching me ride and he'd just been wondering where I'd gone. And he said, I want to have a meeting with him. And so obviously Kevin had a plan. I think Fergal Lynch was riding for him at the time, so Kevin obviously had a plan that he was going to change tack. And so luckily for me, when I did meet him, I was like, you know, I was like young up and coming trainer, Irish. He's got a lot of big owners, and he was training a lot of winners. And he'd come looking for me. And then when I started riding for him, like, Kevin just instilled so much confidence in me. He just literally would say, listen, I'm the trainer, you're the jockey, I train him, you ride him. And I was like, this is good, this is easy. So I just go out and ride the horses on field, and I suppose that was the biggest influence for me, because he put the confidence into me. And I think I rode like 5-6 years for him, and we had a lot of big success together. And then that was a big influence on me going to Hong Kong.
And what about the late Michael Jarvis? Because you were second jockey, first of all, to Philip Robinson, weren't you, for Michael? He's been quite an important figure in a lot of people's lives. Tell me a little bit about riding for him.
Well, no disrespect to anybody else, but I just always thought Michael was the best trainer I ever rode for, because he just had that old school mentality, you know. He just, the respect, the honesty, I don't know, there's just everything about him. Michael just, I have a picture in my house, in my office, and it's just a picture of Michael on the gallops. And it's, anybody walks in, they wouldn't even know it was him. It's in black and white, and it's just quite poignant that it's him just at the top of the gallops. And it takes centre stage in my office. And I'm still quite close to his wife, Gay, and daughter, Jackie, who's now married to Tom Clover in their training. So, but, you know, once Philip kind of went into retirement and I kind of took over and I rode for Michael for a season, it's a shame I wasn't longer, because I just loved riding for him. It was just so easy. It was a bit like riding for Kevin. Just so easy to ride for. And very, very, very loyal. And I've just hit it all in a nutshell. He's just so good to ride for.
And he was a never man who said an awful lot. Well, he didn't need to. He didn't need to be over-demonstrative or too showy. He just seemed to be able to inspire people and inspire a lot of love and warmth from people who he was close to and worked with. And
I think that's comes down to, like, I think it's old school. You know, even Clive Britton, when I was riding for him for a few seasons, a great success with him. A lot of good fillies. He'd be in the Fillies Mile and all that. But a lot of respect, a lot of loyalty, and if there was ever a problem, they'd come and approach you and talk it through. And actually, if it was an owner that didn't want to use you or whatever, you know, you're going to get taken off on, they'd come and chat to you, and you actually walk away, like, obviously you're disappointed, but you walk away thinking, do you know what, I don't feel so bad now, because it's better than just being like getting a hammer dropped on you and you're off it and that's it, move on. You know, so I suppose, like you say, when Michael didn't really have to say much, but he was so well respected, and I had a massive amount of respect for him, and it's just a shame I couldn't ride for him longer.
You list all the people that have been big influences on you, and you talk about your family members, but also for Michael Jarvis and Kevin Ryan and Clive Britton. It strikes me now, you've really kind of explained why you were so well equipped to take a huge journey like the one you went to Hong Kong, because you had this great context to set it against. You knew what being a good trainer was. You knew what it was to ride for people who were exceptional at their job. You knew what good man managers were. You understood the skills of diplomacy, sort of.
Yeah, but I know I also knew how to take disappointment as well. So,
yeah.
I suppose, yeah, it does. But that's all about growing up in not just as a person, but in your career. You learn along the way. You either learn or you don't learn, and if you don't learn, well, then you fall away very quickly. So I always felt that life in itself is a learning curve, but going through my career, learning all these things and working with these sort of people and having the respect and being given the respect and also seeing the bad side of things and the good side of things, that when I did go to Hong Kong, I knew what disappointment was, and I knew how to push myself.
Yeah. And
I knew that when you are down, nobody's going to pick you up. You've got to pick yourself up. And coming back to being a tough person myself, I suppose all those things kind of helped me, that when I did go there, that even in my first season, like, I rode 2 winners in 3 months. And I went away to Thailand for a week before I came back. And I knew I had to go back to Hong Kong to pick my stuff up. And they knew. And one of the jockeys had a fall and broke his arm. And then there was a few jockeys out, so they were very light on jockeys. And they knew I had to go back. And they asked me to ride on that Sunday. So I was like, yeah, okay, I got to go back there. I may as well wait till Sunday. It's like 3 days. And but I was like, how do I book the rides? I haven't got the phone for the entries. I haven't got any information. I'm in Thailand, so it's an hour behind. So the entries are going to come out at the wrong time. How do I book the rides? And they were like, well, get your phone and start ringing the trainers. So I did. And I literally sat by the pool. There was 10 races on the Sunday. I got 9 rides. I got my first 2 rides for Ricky Yu. He's the first trainer I rang. They both won. I got 2 rides off John Moore. I got 2 rides off another, one off another. I had 2 winners. Out of the 9 rides, 5 of them were in the first 4. And I never forget, we went to the airport that evening, and I said to my wife, I said, they can help you if they want. And that's what put it in my head. I was like, I'm coming back. And I came back, and then I did like 3 to 5 months, and then I stayed.
Because that's the thing. I guess you have to condition yourself to the fact that it is disappointment, because they're huge fields, competitive races. You simply can't ride a winner in every race. It's going to be low percentage stuff. Whenever I saw you ride a big race winner in Hong Kong, I've rarely seen anyone show such intense emotion on your face. Is that because you had to put so much into it to get that one moment of glory out?
Yeah, because I felt like, look, I'm not the only one. Every jockey that goes out there, has a period where they kind of have a breaking in period. That, like, you don't just land there. Like, Joe's probably an exception. Like, he just landed there and just kicked up. But a lot of jockeys that go there, some are kind of like brought in and portrayed as like they're just superstars and they're going to take off, and some don't. And then you got the jockeys like me who are like kind of top 5, not champion jockeys, that are not built up as the big superstars. So you kind of like have to push yourself through that barrier. And you either go on between your tail, with your tail in your legs, or you persevere and you keep pushing and prove yourself. And I think that's what I was doing. I just was trying to prove myself every day because, you know, when you win on the Sunday, you give one a bad ride on the Wednesday. Well, then the following week, you've got to face that trainer and you've got to fight to get back on the ride. So I think every time I was winning, I felt like I was proving myself and proving myself to show them that I was good enough to stay there.
What was your best moment, do you think?
In Hong Kong? I think my best moment in Hong Kong was winning the QE2 on Blazing Speed. Unbelievable day. It's funny because my wife was meant to come that day, and my kids weren't behaving very well, so she stayed at home. But because we live on site, there's a gate that comes through onto the track, and I'd been looking for my wife in the paddock, and I didn't see her. And going out onto the track, I didn't see her, and I thought, this is strange. Anyway, went past the winning line, went round the pull-up area, and cantered back, and my wife brought all the kids out from the gate by the rail. So I cantered back and pulled the horse up by the rail, and so all the kids were there. So it was quite a cool moment. It's really good.
Special moment. Look at that.
Good days.
You want a bit more of that, don't you?
Yeah, I want it back in England. Yeah, I do. I love the big time.
Okay, so how much can you want it now? Having experienced that intensity, having experienced that level of competition every time you go racing, how does it feel to you now when you go to a quiet race meeting here with not many people here? How do you get yourself up for
it? It's a big adaptation back, but, you know, I went from here to there and had to change to ride there because, like, the racing is so sharp. You have to be so fast out of the gates, position, you know, everything. You have to be so sharp. Here's a little bit more chilled. So I've had to kind of come back, reverse back into that position and the way of riding. And going back to, say, go to a quiet meeting. Hong Kong has been quiet for the last 18 months. There hasn't been public going to the races, so it has been very quiet.
But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I know. The intensity of the racing is still quite intense and it's tight and it's competitive. But I knew what to expect coming back because I rode here before. And so I kind of had my mind set, knowing that I was coming back to what I was coming back to. And the thing, I love riding in England. I love the race riding. The travelling's not great. It's changed a lot. The prize money is not very good. I don't really look at it. I just want to go out and try and win. But I think even...
But the Sun told me that you'd earn £37.1 million now, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I know, but I wouldn't be here if I was at 37. I wouldn't be
They
going
didn't
to
realise you don't actually get to keep all of it.
No. So, look, you know, it's the amount of money I accumulated. I've got 4 kids, a lot to pay for. So, you know, anyway, look, it was worth going, just put it that way.
Yeah.
But going back to what you're saying, coming back to here, I know and I knew what to expect. So I'm more than happy to go to these meetings because, A, I love winning, because this is my job, this is what we do, this is why we do it. It's the winning. So I want to build that back up. And I think because we're so far into this season, I think for me, it's just about building contacts. I just want to build contacts. I want to show everybody that I'm back and I want to succeed. And I want to get back to where I was when I left.
If I was booking a jockey for tomorrow, why should I book Neil Callan?
Because I'm Iron Man. No. Look, because I want to win, and I'm strong, and I can win as good as any jockey in England. So, you know, I was top 5 before I left, and that's where I want to be. That's what I want to get back up to. So, you know, I'm determined to get up there. So, put me back on. Give me all the winners.
Neil Callan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's been a pleasure.
Neil Callan, what an extraordinary decade it's been for him.